Okay, Chair Friedman, I will hand it over to you.
Thank you. And I would like to call to order the regular meeting of the Palm Springs Sustainability Commission for April 26, 2023. The agenda was posted in accordance with the Brown Act, and this meeting is being held pursuant to Assembly Bill 361. And can we have a roll call, please?
Sure. Commissioner Barrett,
Present.
Commissioner Baker,
Here.
Commissioner Torrance,
Present.
and Commissioner Friedman.
Thank you, present.
Okay,
Okay.
all accounted for.
Thank you. All right, we now have acceptance of the agenda. Are there any adjustments that any of the other commissioners would like to make on the agenda?
No.
Okay, hearing none, then I consider that acceptance of the agenda. Welcome and introductions. We will have some presentations shortly, but I think we can skip on specific welcome and introductions, and we can move directly to public comments. So this is the time is for members of the public to address the Sustainability Commission on agenda items and items of general interest within the subject matter jurisdiction of the commission. The commission values your comments, but pursuant to the Brown Act, cannot take action on items not listed on the posted agenda. 3 minutes are assigned for each speaker. And would have any members of the public who would like to address the commission this evening?
Yes, Paul Hendrickson here. Not really Go Bananas. I tried to rename it. Sorry, it wouldn't let me. Briefly, I want to talk about two topics. One is smoke-free Palm Springs, and also supporting turf conversion update for additional funding and to pursue that. So definitely supporting that. And back to smoke-free Palm Springs, had some conversations with both Commissioner Baker and LP, so they're familiar with some of all the details. It appears that the Human Rights Commission had previously rejected the smoking ordinance, and now there's new leadership that is now aware of that and it seemed very open to having it brought back to them for reconsideration. And I'll leave all those details to Commissioner Baker and LP. And that was everything. Thank you very much, commissioners.
Thank you very much. And any further comments from members of the public this evening?
Chair Friedman, we have 2 members of the public with their hands up.
Okay, we have, okay, in order of my sort of left to right on my screen, we have first Alex D and then Christian Bilson.
Okay, thank you. My name is Alex. Today I just wanted to remind you of some important issues that are hopefully trying to get resolved already. We are still waiting for better public transportation. It has been awful riding on Sunbus lately to get around the valley, and people don't want to ride bikes when it's too hot. We are still waiting for bike lanes on simple main roads like Dinosaur Drive and Ramon Road by Walmart area where I reside in. We are still waiting for plastic bags to be banned from grocery stores. I can still go in and get a thick plastic bag just to use it once. It should be paper bags for a cost, or bring your own bag. Also from restaurants too. The new Raising Cane's by the Walmart has caused so much littering all over the area. Everywhere you look, you can find a Raising Cane's bag with trash tossed aside somewhere on the streets or desert. Immediately from the start, it has been like this with them. A lot of the customers that go there are rowdy and they litter a lot for some reason. The only way to stop this is by banning single-use plastic bags from big chains like Raising Cane's or Applebee's. Del Taco has the paper bags and they work just fine. I also wanted to just add my comment that I do not support smoke-free Palm Springs, because you can't just outlaw smoking in public. That's definitely reaching, that's overreaching. And I see they did that in Irvine, but that just leads to more, that's going to just probably lead to more police contact, and that's not necessary right now. I yield my time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, and Mr. Bilson.
Commissioners and Director, thank you for allowing me to speak. I didn't come up with a prepared remarks and stuff like that, but I would like to bring to your attention the tremendous amount of funding that could be available by the Inflation Reduction Act. I've had communication with Commissioner Friedman about this, and this could bring millions upon millions of dollars into the Coachella Valley for low-income individuals, particularly for replacing appliances and revitalizing their homes, reducing their impact on the environment and on their own paychecks. I really think that throughout the rest of the year, this should be the primary focus for this committee or this commission. Finding out a way to funnel the federal dollars from, federal dollars into the I'm sorry, like I said, I didn't have prepared remarks, but it could be a game changer for a number of low-income households throughout the Coachella Valley, in Palm Springs, as well as North Palm Springs, and it kind of like we really need to concentrate on this, and so that's all I have to say. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Bilson. Okay, thank you. Are there any other members of the public? I believe those are their only two members of the public. Is that correct? Okay, who are linked? Okay, fine. Then we will now close public comments and move to the presentation by Desert Compost.
Thanks, Commissioner Friedman. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, commissioners and LP. My name is Haley Preston. I'm the director of Desert Compost. I know a few of you, so it's nice to see you all again. I haven't been to one of these meetings for a while. We've been very, very busy. So for those of you whom I haven't met, I'm the director of Desert Compost, and we are a nonprofit program of the California Alliance for Community Composting. And we're a grassroots organization we formed 2 years ago, and our job is to really work at that nexus of social change and climate resiliency in order to help our communities have access to the education and the kinds of strategies that build strong communities and build climate resilience. So that's what we've been doing, and our medium, as you could probably guess, is compost. And LP invited me to give you a brief report on what we've been up to lately. So I don't have a lot of fancy pictures for you. I sent some to LP of our latest action shots, but I'd just like to share with you a story about a volunteer. And just so you know, our organization is largely volunteers. We just hired our first staff this year. So that's a very big development for us. But I want to tell you about a volunteer named Pam. And Pam Hill and her wife, Cheryl, trained as master composters. There is such a thing, if you can believe it. And they came to our compost training at the College of the Desert. We have 2 other sites in the valley right now. And so this serves as our training grounds. So Pam and Cheryl, it was clear that they were ready for action. They got right in and they pushed an 800-pound cart of food scraps through the desert sand. And when they got to the compost pile, they weren't done. They took temperatures, they dug in their hands to look at the micro and macroorganisms and fungi. I mean, I know we're all on the Sustainability Commission in this room, but like, how many of you would do that? I compost, I don't always want to do that, but they were so into it, right? I see your hand, Christian. It's like, some of us, it's like, that's good dirt. So anyway, 2.5 hours later, after their first in-person training, I checked in with them. I was kind of curious because that was kind of labor intensive, and I asked how they were feeling. And I expected them to say something along the lines of like tired or, whew, that was a lot. Instead, I got the resounding, like, sweaty smiles just shine across their faces. And Pam told me that she was having so much fun and she was so excited. And for the 1000th time, I kid you not, since we started Desert Compost, I reflected on how personally rewarding this work can be. So even if you're not sold yet, I want to share a little bit more. So Pam happens to be the site manager at the newest Desert Compost Community Compost Project here in Palm Springs. It's a huge celebration. Commissioner Torrens, you personally know how hard we've worked for this. So it's kind of encouraging to know that they were willing to not only train with us, but also lead this work at the United Methodist Church. So Pam is the administrative assistant to the pastor, Pastor Jane Voights at the church. And just last Wednesday on April 19th, Pam built the first community compost pile with Desert Compost staff at this site. So talk about work. That pile is a result of a wonderful relationship between Desert Compost and United Methodist that began 2 years ago. We've spent hours and hours together in community presentations and engagement sessions. We wanted to make sure that we were really reaching everybody. And so while it took us a long time, we wanted to make sure that the community had buy-in. So we walked the grounds and created a plan, and we invested ourselves in educating one another and listening to one another and answering questions and dispelling the disbelief of critics and naysayers. Thanks for the pictures, LP. So United Methodist, for those of you who don't know, they're an organization that works to feed people, heal people, and eventually provide shelter for people. They decided that they would be the perfect candidate to model climate resilience in terms of creating food justice, social justice, and climate justice. All of those things are packed into compost. And if we had more time, I might be able to explain that to you a little bit more. But the one thing I just want to let you know that the one thing in our work in the last year since we received the grant from the city is that we never hear ever, yeah, but how is this really going to help? Instead, we're surrounded by people with happy faces like Pam who believe that this is actually making a difference. And it's not just a belief, we have the data to back it up. So in some future hour together, I'd love to be able to give you that data. The data speaks for itself. But just in this last week, Pam has already diverted 150 pounds of food scraps from creating greenhouse gases in the landfill. And the event itself was a joyous celebration. LP, you caught us right at the very end there. And I don't know if it struck you about the simplicity of it all. There was a lot of work going into making something super simple. And that's our job. So this is as far as the rest of the time that we spend with the people in Palm Springs, we are educating the public on the simplicity of this. And so even for the people who are still kind of on the fence, like, is the climate crisis in my face? Maybe, maybe not. Doesn't matter, because every single time after they talk with us, they feel like they can be a part of something that makes a positive impact on a problem that often seems too big to solve. So United Methodist has transformed their entire approach. They've even returned their green bin to the waste management company. That's massive. It's so awesome. And just like the weather this time of year, we're just getting warmed up. So Desert Compost is going to be leading a training for volunteers and community members at United Methodist on Wednesday, May 3rd at 7 a.m. bright and early, but this training is open to the public and you all are invited. Now it's right in your backyard and you can come and see it, participate or don't, stare at it or don't, but just come and, just open your eyes a little bit and know what it is and what it isn't. So Pam told us how excited she was to participate, and that's the gift I'm proud to share with you and all of Palm Springs. So publicly, thank you, Pam, and thanks to the city for the scholarship.
Thank you very much for that very, very interesting presentation. Any questions, comments from the commissioners? Really, our Scour members, I think, are.
No, it's nice to see you, Haley. Congratulations. Thanks for the update.
Thanks, Jake, and thanks for believing in us, and thanks for the support of this commission.
Thank you. Well, we look forward to hearing more about future successes and future sites if you have them.
I will say that I did get to swing by. Haley mentioned the kind of groundbreaking, almost like ground stirring of the United Methodist Church site last week, and we'll just underline, the real excitement and commitment there from the church, from the partners, from the members there at Desert Compost, and it's also, I think most of you are probably familiar with the location, but It's kind of there, the church is there on the corner of Vallejo and Sunrise, and it's a very sort of like visible and central location here in the community. So it's something that I think is going to continue to be a community asset. So glad the city council through the grants and sponsorships was able to support a little bit this year, and I'm sure that they will look forward to continuing to do that in the future.
Thank you, LP. All right, thank you very much. All
One
right.
second, I forgot to unmute, sorry. No, it sounds very good, and I'll try to, I will come by and check out and see what's happening over there. So I'm glad to hear about it.
We'd love that. Thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you very much then. All right, well, we'll stay tuned to your future developments, and thank you for coming and presenting to the commission this evening.
You're welcome. Thanks, everyone.
All right, thank you. All right, and nothing specific for the chair's report, other than thank you all for being there, and we'll have a few more meetings together. So we'll hear now from LP on staff comments.
Okay, hi everybody. I concur with Commissioner Barrett, who mentioned toward the beginning of the meeting that it feels like it's been months and months and months since we last met, even though I think it's been like 5 weeks. So nice to see everyone. And I have a few different things I want to run through. We prepared a number of slides this week, so we're really on our game. So we've got some photos and things to share as well. So I'll start with actually probably the thing that is on most everybody's mind, which is status of commissioner appointments. So we do actually have pretty significant updates between last meeting and now. So my understanding is that the city council has gone through and done interviews for new commission candidates. My understanding is also that they are not necessarily going for the smaller sized commissions. So we may be accepting up to the statutory 11-member commission size. I don't know if we have that many applicants, but we may be going back to the original size. TBD, but they have not made the overarching decision at this time to reduce the size of the commissions for this cycle. They are looking to do interviews for appointments for terms beginning July 1st. So we will be with this crew, kind of, I think, as some of us suspected, we will be with this crew through the end of this term, which goes through the end of June. So that gives us 2 more meetings after this one. Commissioner Baker will be reaching the end of his term at the end of June, and unfortunately will not be eligible for reappointment since this is your 2nd term. And we will be very sad to see you go. And Commissioner Torrance will also be reaching the end of his term at the end of June. Commissioner Friedman, you've been running on borrowed time, so you will also be departing us. We will be again sad to see you go. And so we expect to hear some additional information on the results of the council's interviews and decisions and appointments, probably by the end of, I would say probably by our next meeting, but the target for those new members to start would be for the July commission meeting. So I'll pause there if anybody has any comments, questions, etc. on that matter.
I did not realize that I'm going to be the only continuing commissioner with the new commissioners. So that's going to be interesting. Yep.
Welcome to the Learning by Doing committee, which is not most of you, but it is certainly me and Anita. So we've been doing our best. So we'll all continue in that way. But anybody else have any other comments, questions, etc.?
Other than delighted to hear that the council is going to be making appointments for us and the other commissions. And given all the work that we have to do, this has always been, and I remember my interview for the commission in 2015 for the 2 council members, and being specifically told that the Sustainability Commission was a working commission and we were expected to be out and in the community. And while that hasn't necessarily happened for the past 4 years, for the reason that we understand, I do think that having a full complement will allow the commission to be out, to be fully, invested in the community and take on more projects, because the more people there are, the more projects that the individual commissioners have been done. And that's one thing also. We've been a bottom-up commission and we've all had projects, and Lord knows I've had more than my share of them. And having additional commissioners come in with their own projects and priorities, I think will be a good sort of aspect for the city. So hopefully that will continue. But I'm pleased to hear that we'll be able to, the commission without me after many years, will be able to continue with the full complement.
Yeah, and again, we'll see how many, because we don't have a lot of visibility on how many people apply to the commission, because that would effectively be, somewhere in the neighborhood of, 8, 9, 10 new people. I don't know that we got that many applications just for this commission, but we might have. So we'll see. I'll keep you guys posted.
Okay, great. All right, thank you.
Yeah, of course. Okay, so I'm going to move to the hiring topic, but we can jump back if we need to. So I would like to start the hiring topic with some bittersweet, or mostly bitter for me personally, news is that this will be Anita's final commission meeting with us. She has been here on an extended term with us since last November, and I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank her for her work in supporting this commission, turning around minutes in record time, keeping us on the straight and narrow, and then handling our finances, getting the community garden up and running, and has done all of this with grace and aplomb. And I will personally very much miss having her in the office. So wanted to take the opportunity to thank Anita for her work in supporting the commission. I will continue forward unless Anita, I don't know if there's anything you want to say. Oh, go ahead.
Vice Chair Baker, and then I also wanted to throw in something. Did you have a comment, Vice Chair Baker? Okay, I want to thank Anita in particular for the wonderful minutes, because I do review them before they get circulated to the full members of the commission, and anything that I don't have to do because it's already done really, really well before it gets to me is greatly appreciated. So my only ask, Anita, is that if you could write the minutes for this meeting before you finish, then that would be great. And we will definitely miss you, and hopefully whoever takes on the role will you can train them on just really spiffy minute writing. So my personal thanks to you, and it's been a pleasure working with you for just a couple of months, and knowing that if I ask something, I get an immediate response and thank you, and we'll miss you.
Oh, I'm touched, and I will do the minutes for this meeting.
Okay, wonderful, thank you. And then whatever, we'll let you move on. Thank you.
I'll second what David just said, that Anita stepped in and has done exceptionally well with minutes and managing and all sorts of things. And I'm sure she's made life much easier for LP, and we'll miss you. We'll definitely miss you.
Thank you.
All right, well then I will continue to further hiring updates. So we do have someone who will be starting at the end of May, who has accepted the positions that Commissioner Barrett helped me with the interviewing for. A young person by the name of Christian Wheeler. I never like to infer people's pronouns in 2023. So, but Christian is joining us from he's been doing some work in code compliance, has been working on a master's degree in sustainability management, and has a lot of expertise and experience in data analytics, sustainability planning, those kind of things, and did a truly exceptional job, we felt, as a panel in the interviews. Also seemed to have a good sort of like warm and welcoming persona that I think will be helpful as we continue to do more community outreach around a lot of the projects that we want to do. So Christian will be joining us at the end of May. That is the only finalized detail that I have that I can share at this point. We are working on filling the 2 additional positions, and hopefully I'll have some additional updates I can share on that at the end of or at our May meeting. Sorry, kind of lost my train of thought there for a second. Any questions, comments, thoughts?
You'll introduce us to Christian at the June meeting then?
Yes,
Wonderful.
June
Thank
meeting.
you.
Yep.
And were the other candidates, are they no longer available?
Oh, so we had 2 candidates decline the offer, which is
Okay.
always interesting. I think when you get to that stage of a process, one just kind of had 2 offers come in around the same time and picked the other one, which it happens. It's and then the other we were at a mismatch on salary, but didn't really get into like an extensive negotiation there. So I'm not totally sure what the totality of the circumstance was there, but so we will be needing to continue that search for the second climate and sustainability specialist. So that's something I think we're going to be reposting that probably sometime next month once we can get authorization to do so.
Okay, if you need me again on assisting with interviews, I'll be available.
Thank you. I may need you. I will let you know. I appreciate the offer.
So we have Christian plus the 2 plus continued recruiting for the 2 sustainability specialists that council has authorized. Is that correct? Or is
Correct.
Christian's-
We'll have 4 total. So Christian is taking one of the specialists that council has authorized. We'll have
Okay.
a second specialist that we're bringing on, and then doing the permanent fill for the program coordinator line, which is more, that one is a little bit more tied up in sort of existing city processes and civil service lists,
Okay,
which I'm learning. Every city has
Okay.
a new process for this.
okay, all right. So Christian is taking one of the 2 sustainability
Correct.
specialist slots. Okay, that's
Yep.
wonderful.
Yes, so we're looking forward to having them on board very soon, soon.
Okay.
So that's latest on hiring. Status of teleconferencing on commission meetings is the thing I have the least updates about. No news on this front. So we are good to continue for the time being. No one has said anything other than what we discussed last time, so we can continue remote until somebody tells me we can't. I will say probably about half of the commissions have gone back to in-person. Still a little bit TBD on they're having people come in to do public comment and things like that. But they are also like simulcasting and recording to Zoom. Different commissions have sort of taken or have sort of had different experiences with people wanting to remote in. I think currently, if the commission is in person, most of the commissions are saying you have to be there in person to be part of the meeting, even though they're sort of doing the broadcast on Zoom. And I think they're allowing public comment in on Zoom, but it kind of depends on the commission. But anyways, we're going to keep going if you guys want to keep going. That's basically the long and short of it.
I think since it's basically just 2 more for us, we would continue, and then it'll be up to Commissioner Barrett as a continuing commissioner and the new members to decide, perhaps after their July meeting, but that's up to them, and I'll kind of defer. Commissioner Barrett, I think probably by default, since she'll be the only, well, you'll be the continuing commissioner. It would be up to the new commissioners to elect a chair. So you may find yourself back in that position, but that would be, for the new commissioners in July to make that determination.
I realize that, and that's okay with me. I do have one question. Do commissions meet in August?
No, we've always been
Okay,
dark.
so the new commissioners would it would end up being a September meeting.
Well, they would, if they're named by June, there would be a July meeting, assuming they all get their paperwork done. Normally, at least in previous years, council will make those generally either the first or worst case second meeting in June, so that everyone submits their paperwork, et cetera, by July 1 for the term beginning of July 1. So I think you'd end up being interim chair by default, and then an election for going forward. But I'll let you and LP figure that out as of July 1, when I will be blissfully retired, at least from this position.
Okay,
Yes, I hope everybody was.
After 8 years. So and LP, as you know, I have an awful lot of materials, both in emails and my brain. So you and the further continuing staff and commissioners are always welcome to touch base and saying, hey, can you help out?
Thank
on
you.
a specific question.
For better or for worse, I do know where to find all of you. So,
Yeah.
so I appreciate the offer. Okay, well then I'm going to move over to the next item, which is a quick Earth Month recap, even though we're still in the middle of it. So I have a couple of slides to share. So let me go ahead and do that because I have some photos. So I wanted to just take a minute because I know we had a great brainstorm and kind of mind melding discussion toward the start of the year, I think at the February meeting on Earth Month. Wanted to share some of our reflections and some of the things that worked really well and some of the things that either we didn't quite have enough time to pull off, or I'm still kind of getting my feet wet enough to pull off, or things that we want to try in sort of smaller formats. So if we're not just sort of pinning all of our hopes on one month. So we were most successful, I think, with our strategy of showing up at other people's events a lot this month, which actually proved to be a really helpful strategy for us, because even though, there's overhead and things in terms of, making sure we have presence there, coming up with the different activations for each event, it kind of gives us a skeleton to operate within. So that was helpful. So the 3 events that we've done so far this month are the Family Fun Day at the Palm Springs Library, which was a Wednesday, which I believe was April 12th, which had quite a lot of attendees. I'll show you some of the outputs from that here in a minute. But that's basically targeted to families on spring break, something to bring kids to do. They also have a really interesting thing at this event where they ask the attendees, mostly the kids, but also in some cases parents, to kind of get stamps on a little passport from all of the booths in order to be eligible for a prize pack. So it meant that pretty much everybody who attended, if they were committing to doing the event, went to all of the tables, which I thought was a really interesting way to make sure that people were circulating. We also participated in the first Art in the Park in the Dark event, which was a day-long activation hosted by the Parks Department and then a few different community volunteers and the neighborhood organizations there near Demuth Park, which was kind of a combined World Art Day and then sort of like night park activation art day thing. So it ran from about 3 p.m. to 10 p.m. And it was a smaller event in terms of the number of like organizations who were there, but had also, again, quite a lot of attendees and participants. It was a different group than I think we normally get at a lot of our events too, because it was in the evening, it was on a weekend, there were a lot of families, like lots of people of all different ages coming through, and a much more, I think, diverse group of people than I often see at some of the events that we'll do. So that was a really interesting event. It was a really long day. It ran from basically 9 a.m. to 11 p.m. From setup to execution and everything, but I feel like it was worth it, but it was definitely a commitment. And then we popped up at the farmers market this past weekend, which is, as you know, is not unusual for us. They also had sort of a mini golf thing happening there, which was kind of interesting. So we were in a different position from usual. I would say is probably the event where we saw the lowest turnout. And I think it was a particularly low turnout farmers market as well. So maybe sort of things that we'll think about in the future. So we did host an art and engagement activation at each event this Earth Month, which is something we haven't done at our previous tabling, at least since I've been here. And I'll show you some photos of those here in a second. But basically just ways to kind of get people thinking creatively about sustainability, try to understand what people are interested in, draw people in a different way than just kind of like, here's a bag. We did give out 125 reusable straws, which is not an infinite number, but is several. And then to close out Earth Month, we are hosting the shredding event and e-waste drop-off on Saturday. So I will flip over to photos really quickly. So we did 3 different engagement activities, like I mentioned. So this one over here, I don't know if you can see my mouse. Can you see my mouse?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. So the Art in the Park in the Dark event, we knew was going to be sort of a more all ages event. And so we did a trash collage, which is basically all of the magazines and junk mail in my house. And I brought it to the event and asked people to sort of collage what they think about when they think about the future of sustainability. So we had 2 different stations kind of set up. One, you can actually see it right here. These glow in the dark balls that I found in our storage unit, which were really clutch because it was really dark outside. So we had sort of like the kids collage up here, which is interesting because you would think that the kids collage would be down here and the adults collage would be up here. But this is kind of where we would have people sort of stretch out, collage for like 20 minutes when they needed a sitting break under the shade. And then kids, we had these 2 kids who really went to town. They were there for like 90 straight minutes. Their parents were off kind of doing whatever. And I kind of had the kids just creating art, which was fun. And then for the Family Fun Day, we did sort of a similar prompt, but using just markers for drawing. So the prompt here was imagine our sustainable future, which, as you can probably interpret from some of the drawings you'll see here, was mostly loosely interpreted as imagine the future in general, which is why you see a lot of aliens of various types. And back behind this picture, there is a free pizza for everyone sort of situation, but then there were some perhaps less peaceful things that had been drawn in the center. So I did some creative editing here. But yeah, lots of kind of spacey things, healthy soil, no iPad was a really popular one. People really were not about iPads at this event, a lot of anti-iPad drawings. And then just again, opportunities for, young people to communicate visually, which I thought was fun. And then the final activation, which we don't have photos of here because it's less sort of visually compelling, was on Saturday at Earth Day, we did a sort of two-part question where we asked people for their Earth dreams and Earth questions. So one of the things that I've noticed when we do a lot of these public events is that we get kind of, similar questions around, I wanted to kind of understand, are we still mostly just getting questions about how to compost? Are we getting a lot of the sort of Mythbuster type of questions, like, how good is how good for the environment is an electric car really? Like, we get a lot of question trends. So in that we did get some of those EV questions. We didn't actually get that many waste questions at the farmers market, but I think that's probably because the farmers market is a relatively like a prosumer audience. They are on the leading edge of trying to compost correctly. So, I got like one guy asked me for an additional bin, but that didn't need to go on the board. And then we got a bunch of questions around sort of like, why don't people blah, 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 which was kind of an interesting one. Like people asking, why don't people conserve more water? Or why do people drive downtown? Or sort of like, why won't people take the bus? Or like, so that was kind of interesting to hear from that audience. Like they sort of perceive themselves as kind of being ready for an environmental next step, but see barriers and challenges or inertia when they look at sort of other people. The sort of Earth dreams was a little bit more diffuse. We also got some questions around like, what has our environmental progress been over the past like 30, 50, 100 years? Earth dreams was more around sort of like, desert should be healthy, like air should be clean, like, kind of good general stuff. But I thought the questions that were generated there were really interesting, and I'm going to use those in sort of future marketing and events. Does anybody have any questions about what we did? I have one more slide on sort of reflecting on what we didn't do. But any questions about any of the events that we did do?
Not from me, thank you.
Okay. All right, I will continue. Oh, sorry, go ahead. Yep.
Yeah, I did make it to Art in the Park for a little while. Unfortunately, I was sick that week, so I didn't have a lot of energy. But I think that has a lot of potential, and it has a potential for what I've suggested before, that we might want to develop a closer relationship with Parks and Rec in the first place, because there's a lot of garbage generated in the activities at particularly at Demuth Park. And Demuth Park is a very good location for reaching a different segment of the population than most of the other organizations, than many other in our town. So that just an encouragement about whatever we can do to help Art in the Park become something more stable. I know it's a brand new event. Just try it. So that's it.
Yep, that's a great suggestion. And I think it was also, this is the first event that I've done where I was working relatively closely with Parks on just like being at the event. So now, I've built sort of more partnerships with that team there. So I agree that makes a lot of sense as a good sort of build opportunity from that event.
Good.
Okay. So I'm going to switch over here and then we can talk about any other questions if we need to. So less successful with 3 things that I had sort of hoped that we'd be able to do, but did not. So press outreach. So this is one where I think it's going to be interesting for us to think about what our like earned media strategy is in general here, or sort of like placed media. So I think we were kind of hoping to do things like an op-ed or, kind of work to place a few more just sort of pieces of information or stories, or even just social media outreach. I think there's a lot of barriers to that. I think there's a lot going on. It was also the 85th anniversary of the city of Palm Springs. There's, there are small numbers of people who handle most of that stuff here at the city, and then, a finite number of outlets and things in the city as well. So this is something I would want to kind of revisit before kind of going with the same approach. So really kind of thinking more about, what could happen in this third category that would then drive the sort of press placement and that kind of stuff going forward. That's also something where I think leveraging the council members in the future, if that's something where they have an appetite for making environmental announcements or recaps or that kind of thing. Mayor Garner made some good Earth Day remarks at a conference at the Palm Springs Art Museum as an example. So just kind of thinking about how to channel those different voices in the future, I think would be my main reflection on kind of where we went with this. Our own events, I think I just didn't give us enough runway to pull this off. Trying to do it 2 months in advance is not enough time. So this is something where we're going to be working on a couple of just like small events over the spring and summer, and then hoping to start planning bigger things, or maybe sort of co-owning any events with some of these other events, that kind of stuff going forward. And then policy launches. So I think this just kind of is the fact that we weren't in, other than the EPP, which we did get past this, toward the end of last month, and we've been working on internally this month. I think that was kind of like the baby version of what we would hope to do here in the future. But I think just kind of building a little bit more around kind of things that will be ready in April. It takes a few months to get things ready for a particular month. And because of so much noise happening in April in general, it may not always be the best month for that. April's an interesting month here in Palm Springs too, because you have a lot of seasonal residents who are leaving. You have the festival, so it's a different tourist crowd than we normally would get, more transient, less kind of sticking around in Palm Springs. So there are a bunch of reasons why I think maybe or maybe not pinning things on April for a policy launch would be something we would do going forward. We will be working on some additional, like kind of more of our own events coming up soon. So one of those examples is going to be the Ride of Silence, which is being led by the local cycling community. It is an international observance of people who are killed on their bikes due to traffic violence. And so that will be, I believe it's May 12th, which is a Thursday. It's kind of centering around Ruth Hardy Park. They have extended an invitation to sustainability commissioners to attend. I will send that information around to everybody. Maybe we can send it around when Anita sends the minutes, or we can send something next week. But that's something that the Sustainability Office is going to be helping to sponsor, mostly just by covering police officer overtime and that kind of stuff. So we would welcome the participation of the commission there. And that'll be another opportunity for us to kind of like sort of, it's not our event, but we're going to have a little bit more active role in pulling that off and kind of having our brand associated there. But that's pretty much all my thoughts on the month of April. It's also my little brother's birthday on Earth Day, so that is always confusing for me personally. Any additional comments or feedback or thoughts on things that you saw that went well, either in the community, or other ideas that you think we should prioritize or reflect on for next year?
Commissioners?
I would say that LP deserves, again, a lot of credit for these things, because we've had we've done a lot with having a limited capacity in terms of people. And we've been present, and that's a main thing to do, is to be present. And that gives us some voice. So I think that hopefully we will have enough commissioners and everything else that next year things can be much better.
Right here.
Yeah, that would be my hope. Won't be around, but yeah, with additional commissioners, Commissioner Barrett, you might want to form practically the beginning of the new fiscal year with the new commissioners, get volunteers for an Earth Day committee, or Earth Month committee more accurately, to start looking at events. I recall something, although it wasn't for Earth Month, but it was a Palm Springs version of Ciclavia, where there was some road closures. I believe it was so that would have been, I believe it was my first year on the commission, like 2015, fall of 2015. So that's something that perhaps can be, as you discuss, LP, with the cycling community for Ride of Silence. Ask them if they'd be willing to co-venture on a potential cycling event for next year, whether it's for in the fall or April or something like that. But I recall that it was a lot of fun, and a bit of a road race up and down Barristo that was closed. So perhaps that could be done. And particularly if there are new bike lanes, that'd be great. So that would be my recommendation there. I mean, it's obviously a challenge given the small amount of both staff and commissioners to be out there. So I concur with Commissioner Barrett that thanks to staff for doing a lot with a very, very small team and getting us out there.
David, you're still going to be available as a volunteer, or you will be recruited for things, so do not
Well,
get angry internally.
I have my day job, which you know about, that I'll be talking about, but yes, I will continue to help and be at least a resource for ideas, if not necessarily a detailed time commitment, but that you can always count on.
Right.
Okay, the next is my favorite topic.
Yes. All right. So David is very thrilled to hear this. But so we applied for and have been provisionally granted funding for implementing SB 379. So like David has mentioned in the past, Chair Friedman has mentioned in the past, one of the rare funded mandates here in the state of California, where funding was made available from the state to help us meet the requirements of SB 379, which is basically automatic online permitting for solar and related thingies. So that's something that now we've been awarded the $40,000 from the state, which will help us with software, staff time, that kind of stuff. So the next step is after we finish launching the first round of InterGov, which is actually our online building and planning permitting system, which is going live on May 15th. Which I just want to share with this group that if you have any building permits or need to come to City Hall on the week of May 15th, the counter will be closed. So if anybody has any urgent permits or anything that they need, get them in either before or after the week of May 15th. But anyways, we will be working with that same team between IT and buildings to finalize our approach to meeting the SB 379 requirements. So that's coming up soon, but thanks to Chair Friedman for your support and encouragement in making sure we have that funding.
Yeah, this is something that I've been, Taja will probably, Sims at the building department probably has some choice words for me, because I've been at this literally for 3 years since I was first contacted by the National Renewable Energy Laboratory asking if Palm Springs would be a pilot. So I'm pleased to report that this is finally happening. I was looking for something else last night, and I did see that Indio is also among the implementing cities. So I will send you, I'll send you after the meeting or tomorrow, I'll send you just the link to their website. And if there are any sort of implementation hitches, the NREL folks know me quite well, so I'm happy to serve as an interface and say, hey, we're on it. We've got this. We have this, technical question. There's somebody who specifically reached out, I believe, from the International Code Council, who also was going to serve as a resource. So I'll get you folks, I'll get you in LP and Need. I'll send you a little bit of resources for people to reach out to, and please feel free to mention me, because I've been working quite closely with them, and pleased to see that, and it'll, I hope, encourage the other cities. Because so far we have Blythe, which is the first one, at least in CVAG's area, who signed up for that. Indio, and maybe there are some other cities that applied for, but I haven't heard that yet.
Yeah,
So
I checked last week, and as of last week, we were the first city in the valley to be awarded the funding, but I think Indio was hot on our tail.
Okay, great. All right. Yeah, we did send a follow-up message to Sarah. Do you know Sarah Toyota?
I do.
Okay, great. Yeah, so she would be, you two can perhaps, have a sort of implementation chat if you basically do that. But we emailed her this morning to make sure that she got in her full, actually they get $60,000 because they're more than their big city. So that'll be good. But congratulations. Please relay my thanks to building folks, because they've always been, polite, but doing other things. So I'm glad to see that this is happening. And then you've got the SB 379. I will send you also, if I haven't already, or Peter probably sent it, the final guidelines, because the good news is that once you actually have the system running, then you need to start tracking your solar permit. So it's a carrot and stick kind of approach. Anyway, thank you. Thank you for the support of the commissioners to allow me to sort of, continue to put this on the agenda practically every month.
So yeah, love to get money. So it's the first grant I think we've been awarded since I got here. So it's good. And then finally, just really quickly, and I'm also realizing that I always give myself 5 minutes for this and take 25. So next time I
Yeah.
will take less time and also update the time.
Yeah.
So future presenters to the commission. So I know we've been talking about this a lot. So Desert Compost was sort of like the first in our next wave of presenters to the commission. We talked also last meeting about the airport. So Harry Barrett, who is the person in charge of the airport, is able to come for our June meeting. So he'll come and talk both about the new franchise and concessions there they're currently changing out for food and beverage, and then also their master plan, which I know we talked about a little bit a couple meetings ago. So that'll be really interesting. Harry's a real expert on all this stuff and a great presenter. So that'll be at the June meeting. And then we had a suggestion actually from a member of the public, a new resident in Palm Springs who has been working on a lot of outreach and environmental campaigns, particularly with SF Environment, but also statewide, looking at electrification and composting. It's some really interesting work. They've offered to do a short presentation to the commission. I think it would be interesting to kind of see some of those tools and tactics. So they could do the May meeting if that works for the commission. But otherwise we can always move to no presentations if that feels better for you guys.
I think that I saw that I do if that can be confirmed for me. I think it'd be an interesting presentation. There's some really spiffy materials that were there.
Okay, cool. So we'll pencil that in unless anybody is really anti-marketing for May.
No.
We'll pencil that one in for me. And that's all I have.
Okay, all right, moving along, not necessarily right along, approval of the minutes. The minutes were circulated with the agenda for the commission meeting. Were there any comments otherwise on the minutes? Otherwise, we did a review, and again, thanks to Anita for her great job on them. But otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the March 21, 2023 regular meeting.
So moved.
Okay, I think I heard Commissioner, everyone was speaking at once. And you had all three moved. All right, Commissioner Torrance first for the motion, and then a second from, okay, Vice Chair Baker. So motion from you have, was that a question or is that just raising your hand to approve?
Raising my hand, a thumbs up. I
Okay,
approve.
great.
Motion
Okay,
forward.
all right, thank you. All right, so I think we consider that approval of the minutes then. All right, next point is for old business, update regarding the environmentally preferable purchasing policy, EPPP. I think I got it right, number of P's there.
Yes. And this one will be quick actually, because we do have just kind of tactical updates from our last meeting. So I think at the last meeting, we discussed the fact that the council approved with minor additions and corrections that they wanted to see to the environmentally preferable purchasing policy, which one of our deputy city managers, Jeremy, suggested we call E3P, which I'm like,
Okay.
maybe it'll work. E3P.
Okay.
So we did do a staff, like a directors meeting training at the beginning of April. I believe that was April 10th, which sort of kicked off our Earth Month internally, where really the goal for that directors meeting was to build buy-in for all of the implications that this will have on everyone. So like you all have seen, it is not an earth-shatteringly difficult document to follow, but really kind of just getting everybody on board with the fact that things might cost a little more, might take a little longer, and you should update your bid specs. So Anita has done great work building out our staff, kind of what we're calling our power purchasers training. So the people who are really going to be impacted by this on a day-to-day, you know, each department has 1 to 3 people who do probably 80% of their purchasing. So there, Anita has gone through and done a great audit of some of the certifications that are available and that you have on all of our different websites and things, and kind of matching those to things that are actually in EPP, because there are some certifications that have no relevance on EPP, even though they are environmental certifications. So mapping those, giving some example products, and building out kind of what we're going to be talking about. So we're hoping to do that in the next couple of weeks for our key staff, really rolling this out with vigor at the beginning of the next fiscal year. So we are already starting to, as things are coming to us, make sure that those guidelines are being applied, but the motion that the council approved kicks these off really at the beginning of next fiscal year, which is July 1st. So that's where we're at with that.
And I sent you the training
Yes.
for Civic Well, but I think there's
Sure,
gonna be a
sign
lot
up.
of training materials. That's wonderful. Thank you.
That's helpful.
Okay,
Cool.
any comments, further questions from the commissioners? Otherwise, we can move to the next, which is turf conversion.
All right, so I'm actually going to hand it over to Anita. I'm going to pull up some slides and then Anita, take it away and let me know when you want me to switch slide.
You're pulling up the slides.
Sorry, I realized I had started the slideshow on my computer and had not shared the screen. I was like,
Okay,
it's there.
Just a quick update. We had 2 funding rounds. We have a total of 154 approved projects. Out of that 154, 55 have already been completed. The average rebate per project was about $3,200. We had a cap for the matching rebates, so that helped control our costs. The city provided a total of $550,000 in matching funds. And we have funded, partially funded, a total of 437,344 square feet of conversion. And that's for all of the conversions, approved conversions, even those that have not been completed yet. Of the 55 completed projects, that total is 98,000 square feet of turf converted. So the next slide, please. Savings, we, for all of the projects, all 154 projects, we have saved approximately 27 million gallons of water. For the 55 completed projects, we have saved a little over 6 million gallons of water. For the consumer, for all of the projects that have been approved, we have saved them approximately $82,000 per year. And for the 55 projects that have been completed, it comes out to a savings of about $18,000 per year for all of them. If you break down the savings per consumer, I think each consumer is saving about anywhere from $300 to $500 per year by converting their turf.
Thanks for sharing. So does anybody have any questions or like reactions to that initial data from DWI?
Great news. If there's a way of publicizing it, obviously the question is, do you have any update on whether there'll be additional funds available? Because what I understand is the funds were basically gone the day they were authorized. So it's wonderful that the city put in $550,000, but we're able to get any additional allocation, for the at least the budget that council will consider for the next fiscal year?
That's a good question. So we did submit an additional, I think we talked about it with this group, an additional $1 million request to beef up that program. The council will be looking at the budget in May and June. So we'll have some additional information. There will, I think, be at least a council study session and at least one, if not probably 2 or 3 public hearings on the budget. So we should have some additional information. I think that the study session is going to be before the May meeting. So we should have a bit of a readout at that point from that meeting. So we can, but it hasn't been cut yet, as far as I know.
All right. This is one where I may actually want to either, depending on when it's happening, either in the room or via Zoom, come and take exactly those slides, relay them to the council members and say, we really would appreciate that this is, this is something, as we've heard in public comment, this is something that our residents, they want to see, they are doing, and we're making a big difference in Palm Springs. So that's one where I probably will show up wearing my interim chair hat, and it's not conflicting with my other duties because it's about water.
Sure.
So I'll coordinate with you on that. Let me know. I will be away for a few days at the middle of May. That's not when the council at least having a regular meeting, so we'll see where it is. we'll get somebody else to do it if I'm not going to be then available. So that's sort of the first question. And then do you have any, and then thank you, Commissioner Barrett, just one quick question. Are these mostly HOAs, mostly single families? Do you have a breakdown of sort of where they are in terms of, you know, the population of folks who have submitted the approved projects?
It's a good question. Anita, do you have that to hand? I have some general information. You're on mute, by the way.
No, I didn't. He didn't break it down. I assume they're mostly single family.
Okay.
Because the complaint was that the amount was too small for the larger HOA community. So I
Yeah.
think these are mostly single family dwellings.
Okay, all right. If there are more funds that are available, then perhaps there can be additional funds for the large, for the larger HOAs. But given the small amount of funds, obviously we wanted to make sure that single family was able to benefit from that. Okay, Commissioner Barrett.
Thank you very much for those details, Anita. I think that we do need to do what David said and get it to the commission and at least one of us be there. Since I tend to have a problem with staying awake for city commission meetings, feel free to pester me, LP, about that meeting. And I also was concerned about HOAs. Just roughly as you were going through the meeting, through those numbers, it looked like it would have been an average of maybe 1,500 square feet for a house, so for each grant. So that means those were single family homes. It doesn't sound like we did. It doesn't. I don't know how we get to HOAs, but I would love to see us get to HOAs.
So we did hear from DWA kind of anecdotally, and I think because the HOA projects take longer to complete, so we have less data on those so far because they're not done yet. But we did hear anecdotally from DWA that so our goal with this program was to motivate that next bucket of people, right? Like the ones who weren't motivated by the $3 and like who's going to go next. So they did have a number of HOAs who came in with projects that were larger than the cap. And so they were motivated by that additional extra money. So the average project size supported might still be around like 1,600 or so square feet on our side, but it doesn't mean that the projects themselves weren't like bigger than that. I think that's when I see the difference between like the number of projects or the square feet of the project supported and the number of projects supported. It's not like a linear relationship between those two.
Right.
So so I think we are seeing some, but you're right that we want to see more. And so one of the proposals we made in the budget request was to increase the cap for HOAs because most single families will be under this cap, but increasing the cap to $10,000 per project for HOA.
All right, thank you. Now, is there any news on the equity portion of that? Because that was
Yes.
DWA was looking at that, and
Yes.
I know you had asked about sort of the eligibility. So is that sort of in the works still?
Yep. So actually what DWA has just started to do in the last month or so is they've moved to almost more of like a direct install model where the funding is going directly to the landscaper to do the low income project. So any cost delta between what the funding supports, which is up to $8 per square foot for low income projects, which can accomplish relatively straightforward conversions. And so any delta between that and the total project cost would be the responsibility of the property owner, but DWA will be paying the landscapers directly, but they have a group of landscapers who have come to a seminar about it and that kind of thing. So they have sort of like a pre-approved list of potential people who are eligible to do this direct pay. So they just launched that 3-4 weeks ago. So we don't have any data yet on how many projects that they've done, but that's something that we're hoping to get, especially before we talk about budget and things like that. So I think that's going to help because we were still seeing issues where people were like, great, that, it's awesome to get a rebate, but I can't lay out, the $3,000, $6,000 to do it in the first place. So we think that direct install program will help.
Okay, and the city's matching that portion as well.
Yep, so we're matching.
Yeah,
it's a $4 to $4 match there.
Yeah,
And so we're hoping to continue that. It is a relatively small eligible population because you both have to be within what's considered a disadvantaged community by the state's definition and also be in the DWA bill assistance program. So it's not an infinite number of people who are eligible here, but it is still significant. And we're hoping that we can just kind of get to everybody in that pot with this program.
Okay, that would be a point to be made also to the council, is that this is, that there's a strong equity component of this program.
Absolutely.
And any additional funds for that. Okay, thank you very much. This is all very, very good news. Once again, something that we've heard in public comments. So I'm glad that's happening then. And then I'll coordinate with Commissioner Barrett about potential appearance before council to let them know this is important to us. Vice Chair Baker, Commissioner Torrens, any further comments on turf conversion?
Yeah, I didn't get my money when I did mine, but
Sorry.
I know, me neither.
Oh no.
We submitted last year. I was one of the, anyway,
Oh, I'm so sorry. Early adopters among us here.
for the planet, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
I was an early adopter in 2014 from the last round, so I did
yeah,
get.
I was with you, Commissioner Freeman. I was way back like 8 years ago, and they would run out of money within like 2 days. Like, oh, money's gone.
Yeah,
Like next year.
I did get it.
Yeah.
I did get it, and those plants are still going strong. I know most of those plants
They're
are.
still going strong too. They look great.
Yeah.
I have no turf, so actually.
On top of our heads, we don't have any up
space for
here.
the turf, but I don't have it, right, yeah.
And you also have a low water demand.
That's true.
Okay, next implementation of another favorite topic, SB 1383.
Yes, so I don't, on this one as well, don't have a ton of new news here. The main thing that we've been focusing on here is multifamily outreach and targeting. Also, PSDS has really been ramping up their waste audits, or their lid flip program, where they go in and kind of see how's it going. We are starting to see different kinds of questions coming from the public. It's less, why do I have to compost? And more, I want to compost more. Why can't I compost here? Why can't I ABC? So that's something that I know we'll have some additional things that we'll dig into at the Scour meeting next week, in terms of what's been going on with the waste audits, and hearing from PSDS some updates on their multifamily outreach. Their recycling and organics ambassadors have been, intrepidly out, like chasing down bins when property managers put them in a weird spot, and working directly with communities. So that's something I think we'll have a little bit more data on next week. I don't have a ton of information to share on that front this week, though.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. Any comments, particularly from our Scour members, on 1383? I know that's something you're working on continuously. Okay, all right, and then LPI sent you the Rancho Mirage contact.
Yes. Thank you. That was super helpful.
Always happy to share resources in the valley. Okay,
I'm ready for tomorrow.
now moving on to new business, EECBG.
Okay, I'm sorry, guys, this is kind of long, but I'll try to go fast. Okay, so let me pull up my slides just to keep me on topic here. I'll still see Anita's slide here for a second. Thank you, Anita. Okay. All right, wrong slide, sorry. Here we go. Okay, so Commissioner Friedman had mentioned, or Chair Friedman had mentioned at our last meeting, that it would be good to share an update on what we're thinking about for the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant Program, which is run by the DOE. So I have kind of 2.5 goals with this short presentation. So one is to just let you all know what this is, because it took me a minute to figure out what it is. So kind of what's going on here, what are the options, and what's kind of what's our solution space look like? Like what could we theoretically do here? I'm going to talk a little bit about what is allowed and some of the different pathways for the program, and then talk a little bit about timeline and some of our early thinking on where we might use some of these funds. So this is an interesting program because it's a formula grant program, which was new to me, maybe not new to all of you. But a formula grant program basically means we are pre-allocated, and it's kind of similar with the SB 379 money we talked about before. We're pre-allocated an amount of possible money based on our population size. And it's kind of one of those things that, there's money that's been set aside for us in the budget. If we go through the application, we are likely to get the money if we want it. It is federal money. So federal money is sometimes a lot of work. And so I think there's some interesting pathways within this grant program that might be worth looking at, because we're eligible for about $78,000 under this. So not an infinite amount of money here, but enough money to definitely do some good. The funding is available in kind of 3 different ways. So it can be awarded as a voucher for technical assistance, which basically would mean consulting, guidance, support from the Department of Energy, depending on what we would need. Vouchers for equipment rebates, which is something I'll talk about in a minute. The details here are still a little scant on the voucher front. This could be something that's interesting if it's something we want to make available to Palm Springs residents and just do like a mass heat pump campaign or something like that. I don't know. And then, or we can just kind of put in a project proposal for a grant. Within that grant subspace, we can also choose to follow a blueprint, which I'll talk more about what the blueprints are in a second, or what kinds there are available, but basically sort of a pre-prescribed project that kind of deals with a few different areas where we both would receive technical assistance from DOE, and then we also could get paired with other jurisdictions in addition to having the authorization to use our formula grant to do that project. One other thing I will note is that the tribe is eligible for just over $10,000, which is not a ton of money. We have reached out to them to see if they'd be willing to do or interested in doing a combined project so we can put that together, make their money go a little further, make ours go a little further as well. So TBD on that, but we've started that conversation as well. And so, like I said, about $78,000 that we're eligible for. The sort of timeline to keep in mind here. So we are required to submit a pre-award information sheet this week. However, it's basically kind of like are you financially ready to accept this money award? We do have the only level of detail on the actual project that we can even provide in the application is letting them know whether we're interested in doing a grant or a voucher, which again, there's not a lot of information available on the vouchers. So I don't know, but it is a non-binding selection, luckily, but mostly they're just kind of looking for our, are we in the DOE's application systems? Are we ready to accept federal funds? And then the applications are going to be accepted on a rolling basis in 3 different periods. There's some confusion around period 2 and 1, which I have not figured out yet, but I think is not relevant. So we would be eligible either to apply for the October 31st deadline or the January 2024 deadline, basically with our project proposal, and then they would review accordingly based on when we applied within those tranches. So sorry for the eye charts that are coming. So these are the different things that we can use this funding for, which are relatively broad, relevant to a lot of the work that we do. You'll see most of it has to do with buildings and energy efficiency. So conducting audits, thinking about financing programs, looking at distributed energy technologies. There are also some specific things in here around methane. It also can be extended to transportation if we would choose to do something like that. And then we can also do the subdividing between sort of like municipal energy efficiency, so things we would do in our own buildings, or things we would do in collaboration with residents in the city of Palm Springs or businesses. So this is kind of just to give you a feel for some of the different projects that are possible. We could even do things like, LED streetlights, which I don't really want to use this money for that, but, et cetera. And there's a lot of things in here too about potentially leveraging the funding that's here into further state dollars, matching it with local dollars, using that to get other funding, like seeding a revolving loan program, all different kinds of things that we can do. So I'll talk a little bit more about the blueprints. So the blueprints are compelling because they will offer a streamlined application process. So we wouldn't necessarily have to go through the same level of detailed review or even provide the same level of documentation if we kind of just raise our hand and say, we want to be in this cohort of people doing this project. So they are a little bit more specific. There is not a one-to-one match between blueprint and topic. So there's not a blueprint for every topic that is eligible. And some of these, I would say we've already done a little bit, like, some of these, like EV charging infrastructure for the community. I don't know if that's necessarily where I'd want to put our time and money toward, because we do have some of that planning work already done. A lot of the blueprints really focus heavily on planning, building coalitions, setting up early stage work, working with local nonprofits, CBOs or consultants, et cetera. So I'll share these slides with everybody afterward. Oops, sorry. I'll show these slides with everybody afterwards, but there's like an example link in here. So if you want to see what one of the blueprints looks like, you can poke around in there. And then you'll see some of them are like super, super specific, like, topic 3 around solar has like really specific things. And then there's just like 6 workforce development in general. And that blueprint is not currently published. So I would say about 50% of these blueprints are available. And honestly, we could just look at them and be like, cool, we'll just do that ourselves. There's some helpful resources in there, but then the rest are not yet published. So when I'm thinking about the blueprints, I'm kind of thinking about it in 2 ways. So one is, can we use one, or do any of these blueprints align closely with things we know we're going to do this year? Which I think that the chief among those would be our residential and commercial energy code updates and stretch codes, reach codes here. So there are 2 blueprints that seem most closely relevant to that. One being energy audits and building upgrades, which could focus on either us doing a mass energy audit campaign, setting aside funding for people to complete building upgrades. Lots of different ways we could kind of slice and dice that. The second being a building electrification campaign, which is much more specific and is not like, you don't necessarily have to electrify in order to meet the reach codes, but it's kind of like, setting the foundation for that. So that the building electrification blueprint is not yet available for us to peruse, but those are the 2 that seem potentially, close by to what we would want to do. A question that we would have, or that I would have as we're reviewing this in a little more detail, is, are these blueprints going to be too restrictive for us being able to meet our goals? Because for some of them, they are pretty like, first you will do this, and then second you will do this, and blah, blah, blah. And if it matches what we want to do, great. It may not. So we'll have to kind of see a little bit there. The other way that we could think about this is, would it be, since it's, I hate saying things like it's only at $78,000 because that's a lot of money, but it is not an infinite amount of money, especially for doing a lot of this kind of work. So are we best served by then taking that time, energy, and money to kind of either seed or reinvigorate or kickstart some work that we've been doing? So one of those being, we've got a lot of interest right now in doing energy upgrades and audits and things like that for our municipal buildings, which I know is work we've done in the past, but has been dormant, I think, for a little bit. And we have a lot of opportunities to take advantage of funding sources, et cetera, to do something like that. Like maybe that 2B blueprint would make sense. Do we want to think about things like community shared solar in a different way, or other ways to kind of integrate more DERs in kind of a more community scale? Like maybe that's one we could do. I don't know. I highlighted just like the ones that seemed maybe interesting here. But so that's kind of, so when I'm thinking about the blueprints, it's like, do we want to build on something we're already doing, but maybe have it be too restrictive? Or do we want to use this as an opportunity to kind of like start thinking about the next thing? Because we already know we're going to be doing that building electrification and building efficiency work with or without this. So it would just kind of be the right match between like funding resources and time we want to invest. So with that, I will move to my discussion questions, most of which I've already said. So the kind of main next thing we would have to decide is whether we want to do a voucher, a blueprint grant, or like a more open-ended grant. With the caveats here that the voucher details aren't available yet. There's not a one-to-one match, but the blueprints and vouchers have significantly lower application burdens, which is something that is very important to me personally. And so that being sort of question 1, which is tied really closely to question 2, which is what approach should we take to identify the topic? So want to hear, any initial reactions from this group, any sense of who else we should ask, and then how you might recommend that we evaluate our different options here. So I will leave it at that. I'm happy to flip back to any of the slides if you want to see any of those lists. So just kind of turning it over to y'all.
This obviously is an area that overlaps substantially with my day and evening and weekend job. There are a lot, and I'll report more on Inland Regional Energy Network when we get there. There's a lot that's already going to be covered in IREN, and my personal preference would be to do things that IREN is not necessarily that you won't be able to get access. There's a lot of city building, and you'll be hearing, from us sooner rather than later, LP. There'll be a lot of resources to the city itself in terms of its own buildings for energy efficiency upgrades for its own buildings, both in terms of technical assistance, financing assistance to sort of help identify financing, whether that's grants or private sector financing, and some degree a small amount of IREN sort of grant itself. It's the one area. So this is this is probably the one area where post July 1, I want to be involved because I want to make sure that that the city of Palm Springs is getting the most bang for its buck on that. So what I would suggest, but I don't think it's a blueprint, and I don't have an update. I'll talk a little bit more about that later, but since I'm going to have an ordinance at some point when I get the update from the codes and standards team on energy efficiency upgrades for single family homes, and this goes to sort of the rebate and the voucher, I really would, and also our public comment this evening, and I'll get to that in a little bit, anything that we can do to leverage federal funding for heat pumps and other energy efficiency, that would be my preference. So essentially, you're getting a heat pump, the city will give you X $100 to help you, in addition to all the tax credits you're going to get, and there's a state credit that I'll mention in a minute. We can offer to do that. So that may be, I think that's a voucher more than a blueprint.
Yeah.
If I understand where you are and how that's going to work, I don't know, but I would kind of think that the blueprints they seem a little bit prescriptive. And we've got a bunch of things already that we're working on, and obviously IREN is coming out to also do some of these things. So I would be, my gut reaction, if you need something now, is voucher more than blueprint, unless there's some, I'm not sure what time I have tomorrow to look at the blueprints in detail. So
Oh yeah, no, we don't have to make any binding decisions now at all. We have probably 6 months to figure this out, basically. I think this is
so
just kind
I
of
would
opening
prefer,
conversation.
once you have more information, I would be wearing my, a city hat, not necessarily an IREN hat, but with the benefit of my IREN knowledge, saying, let's focus on this because it's not something that IREN does. Anything for transportation electrification, that is, you can take a look at that. If we have the environmentally preferred purchasing policy that essentially says to the city, and also CARB is requiring it, thou shalt get EVs. So that could be potentially an easy win and simple. That's probably the one blueprint that would be probably worth considering, because that helps the city achieve its transportation objectives for transportation electrification objectives.
Yeah, I think that'll be interesting to also see where we settle out with the budget process, because I put in an ask for like 4 times more money than would be available through this grant program for that. So, and it could be something where we're leveraging this into that could be great. So it's something where I'll spend a little bit more time.
And that could also be technical assistance, and there's a whole bunch of state programs that we've mentioned, et cetera. So that would probably be my one sort of off the shelf voucher, a blueprint, and the rest, it would be probably better for vouchers to support our residents and potentially businesses for their energy efficiency programs. So that's my thought. I didn't mean to monopolize the conversation, but it is a lot of the stuff that I'm doing my day job.
Excellent.
Any thoughts from the Commissioner Barrett?
Yes, I thought of multiple things as we were going through this, and then I thought of the $78,000 and said, that's not really a lot of money.
Yeah.
And so it seems that the best option is something that can expand how we implement something that we're already doing in some way, shape, or form. I have other new thoughts, but they would only be starting something and not having anyone to continue it. So I think that helping further implementing something we're doing. And it also seemed, my thought also was that something about implementing the E3P also seemed like a possible direction for this that would make sense. Maybe not necessarily on the things that David mentioned, but I think there's other things under the E3P that we could easily use to sort of plug it into that money.
Yeah, definitely. I can take a close read of that.
Carl?
Yeah, I agree with the chairman. because that money is not going to go very far. So it's best to use it for something that's more advisory. Unless, is there a chance of, I mean, not know the answer, but is there a choice of future years getting, matching funds or?
It's a good question. So I think this program has been around for a little while. I'm not that familiar with it, but that's a good question that I can ask in terms of just like, is this something that we can leverage in the future? Like, will this program come back? Should we be planning around it? Both in terms of matching internally and then also leveraging it into future money from DOE. Good question. I don't know. I'll find out. Thank you.
What do you need from us now?
Good question. So this is really helpful in terms of just kind of getting an initial sounding board. My next question kind of for this group is like, who else do you think should be consulted on this matter, if anyone, keeping in mind that it is only $78,000, but it is $78,000. And, we want to make sure that we do, we try to be as creative and expansive with the money as possible. So, I've definitely got the note in my head to keep in consultation with IREN, mostly to figure out what not to do with this money, because IREN will already be doing it. We're consulting with the tribe just to see if there's something we'd want to do there. Anybody else who should be consulted as we kind of try to decide what to do?
I mean, go ahead, Chair Barrett, Commissioner Barrett, yeah.
Carl, were you going to go ahead?
Oh, I'm sort of hedging. I'm not real strong on this idea of the, the restaurant association, those folks.
Yeah, totally. Especially if we wanted to do something.
That fits with my thoughts, whereas my high in the sky thoughts were starting to do something to work more closely with the resort industry, but that's something that's a capital improvement over time to figure that out. Maybe I'm not as far off on this as I think, but we don't have any solar evidence in the parks. And if we want more people to go solar, maybe we could do something with Parks and Rec to start putting more solar in the parks in some way, shape, or form.
We don't have solar on any of our Parks and Rec.
Say one more time.
We don't have solar on any of our parks, and like the pool or.
Oh, no, I mean, in our actual parks where, like Demuth.
Yeah, but I'm saying but the swimming pool, for instance, owned by the city, we're always complaining about the cost of running the heater in the winter and the chillers in the summer. I mean, there's a lot of flat area to put solar panels there.
Well, that's true, yeah, and there's area on the rollerblading area and things like that, yeah.
Yeah,
But that may be again too high in the sky for.
I mean, the city did an analysis 7-8 years ago on what buildings were eligible for would make sense for solar. I'm somewhat, because of the new, and I'll get to it in a second, the new net billing tariff / net energy metering. Solar today is not what it was literally last week. So I'll get to that in my report. So that window is may not be as available as it was until Friday at midnight, or the 15th, the Friday the 5th. Friday it went into effect April 15th. So that would be, so that would be something that I'm not sure necessarily that would work, or at least be the bang for the buck on. But is there you'd have to take a look at these vouchers and blueprints, because I agree that still think that a voucher proposal, whether it's for our residential energy efficiency projects in support of the ordinance that one of these days I'll get the materials for, or for sort of supplementing the sustainability scholarship, where in fact, until it was converted into an SB 1383 program, you could use your $750 to go and do an energy efficiency project in your business. So if we could potentially go back to use this program to go back to having a broader focus on the or additional component to that, that would be a possibility. The city does have the existing program that I put into effect for energy efficiency audits. And obviously, we want to encourage people to do that, and particularly that would be a support of the ordinance that I'm drafting, because you'd have to go get an audit pretty much that you'll have a menu of energy efficiency options and points, but it would be very helpful to actually say, we're going to cover the cost of the audit, for you actually say which of these options make the most sense for you.
Sure. Cool. So it sounds like next steps then for us to, stay tuned on what's actually going on with the vouchers, to see what those actually look like, to review a couple of those blueprints in more detail. So looking at anything that would relate to E3P, anything that relates to fleet electrification, and then specifically the things that would bolster the residential and commercial energy efficiency ordinances, potentially with an eye to groups of businesses who might eventually be impacted, like restaurants who we haven't really engaged with extensively yet, because we can also use this money for, community engagement, to hire a CBO to do a listening session, develop a strategy for us, et cetera. So we'll narrow in a little bit on those. And we'll come back to the commission probably sometime in the fall with kind of next steps and recommendations.
Okay, and you can count on me for, no charge to the city of Palm Springs Consulting. But I think the direction from the commission, if I understand the other commissioners, is essentially $78,000 isn't going far. Let's apply it to a policy, a program or policy that we've already approved, the Sound Council has approved, and see what we can do to support those existing policies. Am I sort of summarizing the direction from the commission?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Okay, all right, and then you have what you need from us.
I do. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thanks for letting me talk so much today. I think I can be quiet now for a while, so
Okay.
I'll let
All
you
right,
guys talk.
we'll take over and probably go through things fairly quickly. Okay, moving to subcommittee and commissioner reports. Scour. Commissioner
Something hit me and I got sick in early April, so we had no Scour meeting in April. We will have a Scour meeting in May.
Okay.
So we don't have any real update there.
Okay, you'll report back at the May meeting. Ad hoc subcommittee on strategic planning and general plan. I'm going to ask Commissioner Vice Chair Baker whether the general plan steering committee that band has been brought back together or not. I hadn't seen anything, at least from my end, that the city had
No, in fact, it has been, and I received an email just a few weeks ago so they do plan on reconvening meetings in the very near future.
Okay, all right. You'll update that.
Whenever they begin.
Okay, all right, because I had not heard that the housing and community development has certified the housing plan. I know that's, up in the works on that. So, all right, you'll update us then.
Yes, as soon as there's a date certain.
Yep. Okay, great. All right, solar and green building. I will have a brief report for both of those and then cover most of it in DCE and IREN. Solar, as I was just talking about in the ECBG, as of April 15th, NEM 1 and NEM 2 are no longer existing for new customers. That is for both residential and non-residential. We're looking at a DC. I'll be talking a little bit more on that, but the net result is that it will take, for example, where you previously for a residential project 3 to 5 years to get your payoff, to basically have the investment payoff. The new estimate from the CPUC is 9 years. So unclear what's going to be happening in terms of solar going forward. I think the best guess is that it will take probably 4 to 6 months for anyone to really figure out what's happening. Edison, or the three IOUs, Edison, San Diego Gas and Electric, and PG&E were given up to 2 years to actually figure out their billing system. So there will be a lot of issues that still to be resolved. So not much is going to happen other than projects that were financially viable 2 weeks ago aren't necessarily as viable as they were before. On the green building, and that's in partial response to the public comment, I learned yesterday that what's called the TECH program, which is financed by Cap and Trade, those do provide incentives for heat pumps. So LP and Anita, I'll try to get you a little bit more information, and that could be potentially posted on the website to let people know. I believe these are that you get those through the installers. But I need to take a look at that. I just learned that it's been a program that was in effect. All the funding ran out 3 weeks before I got my heat pump. So I kind of feel the pain for those who missed the water turf conversion rebates. I got my heat pump after the money ran out, but I'll let you know in the next next few days about that, and that can be potentially posted. Certainly, pending any available funding or vouchers under the CCBG, we can certainly let people know what financial resources are available. So that's essentially one solar item and one green building item, and all for the rest to DCE and IREN. Bicycle routes and cycling, Commissioner Torrance.
So I have not had a chance to regroup with LP after, as we've been waiting for new staff to be hired. And the next big pressing item is to release a coordinated survey across the community to find out what exactly will get them out of cars and into a non-motorized mobility in the city. So we've got the survey approved. It has the endorsement of our external committee. We need to dislodge the survey. So LP, how about you and I regroup and then we can talk about what this might look like? Great. Particularly with me transitioning off the commission in June. All good things must come to an end. But yeah, that's how we'll leave it. So let us give you a better update in May. I know I said that the last meeting, but I promise.
Okay.
That's a wrap for me.
All right. Water conservation. The good news is that for the first time in 16 years, the Department of Water Resources has granted the State Water Project, which includes DWA and CBWD to our east, a 100% allocation. So all of that water that's come down will at least be contractually allocated to our region. That's the good news. The bad news, of course, is that we don't get any water from the State Water Project. We get it from the Colorado River. There's a little bit more that's likely to come in through the Lake Powell and Lake Mead system, because they did have a good snow season in the Colorado River Basin, but that area remains very much in a decades long, now 2 decades plus long drought. So people should not sort of necessarily go to town on their water use. DWA did go back to, inconsistent with the statewide order. It's the statewide order for water conservation is likely not to be rescinded, but will expire by its own terms in June. But in the meantime, they're not sort of citing anybody for violations of essentially the tier 2 requirements, which are some additional conservation. So it's the standard sort of baseline conservation that is essentially now in effect. So there is water, but we still need to conserve. And the other point is that DWA is working its way through the cost of a service study, and there will be public hearings in the next probably 2 months for a potential adoption of a new Prop 218 cost of service. So there'll be a public hearing in each of the 3 cities that are served by DWA: Palm Springs, Cathedral City, where the Cove is under DWA, and then Desert Hot Springs, which gets a wholesale supply from DWA. So those are the sort of key messages from DWA. Wellness, Vice Chair Baker.
I met with Paul and I went blank on his husband's name.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
thanks.
Well,
Last month, a few weeks ago. And also they directed me just to try and reach out more to the businesses. I reached out to David Powell for the Arena Street merchants, although he's no longer the head of that group. So he gave me the name of the new person who's in charge of that. I still have to follow up with that person, but just to get their buy-in and, sort of ease the pain on the idea of removing smoking, especially like in front of Hunters and Chill and the bars on arenas.
Okay. All right, that would be good there. And then you'll coordinate. Sorry, go ahead.
I have a question for Commissioner Baker. Commissioner, Vice Chair, do you need any assistance like liaising with, because I know Paul mentioned like the new person at Human Rights Commission. I was just going to ask if there's anything I could do to help to make that connection if we're ready for that.
Oh yeah, I haven't spoken to anyone on HRC. Everyone I knew turned off that board, that council. So yeah, I appreciate it. Just contact me privately if we can.
Sure.
Thanks.
Thank you, LP. You beat me to the question I had.
Got it.
Thank you. That was exactly my question. I didn't have anything else on that one.
And that's all.
Okay, all right. Over to me for Desert Community Energy and Inland Regional Energy Network. So on DCE, as I mentioned last month, we did have the RFP for resources. We are evaluating that now with our technical team. I will be reaching out, Vice Chair Baker and Commissioner Barrett. I'll be reaching out to you and the other 2 members of the Palm Springs Working Group, the 4 members from Palm Springs of the Community Advisory Committee. And depending on your availability, I would potentially have 1 or more of you assist in reviewing the projects. We're doing initial screening right now. So expect an email from me or from one of my colleagues on that in the next week or so after we do our screening with the technical team. Also, we are looking at, of course, the solar, new programs, and there'll be some materials for our May meeting to discuss just updates to our policy to implement the new solar billing policy. We're getting to budget time, so there'll be a presentation on the 23-24 budget to be approved at the June meeting. So those are the things that we're sort of working on at DCE for sort of the big picture, try and get our additional procurement done. And then on IREN, so LP be looking out for an email any day now from my colleague Peter Karlstrom with a number of things. First of all, sort of to support the hiring needs, the fellowship. So there was a presentation at the Energy and Environment Committee of CVAG 2 weeks ago on the fellowship program, and I think you probably saw the agenda there. So Peter will be sending out an email. It's a simple application. Whether you get the resources or not, you can have somebody who can also help on a number of these programs starting in September. So look for an email from Peter on that. We will be having, in addition to that, we'll be convening all of our 52 cities and the 2 counties to do a deep dive on IREN. That was supposed to happen early next month. It probably will be late May, early June at this point that we're ready to go. For everybody for Palm Springs, you'll be invited to a meeting with the 5 other cities that are in Edison territory. So that'll be THS, Palm Springs, Cat City, Palm Desert, Indian Wells, and Raj. I think I skipped over those. So look for that. It'll likely be in person at the CVAG office, either the new office or probably the old one, and which remains the conference room remains available for that. And that way, LP, you'll have a lot more information about some of these programs, and particularly for energy efficiency upgrades. We will be doing, and I'm literally working on it right now, an energy code training of what's new for the energy code. So look for an email probably from me or my colleague Peter, and that will also be, there will be a survey, and LP, I will make sure that you're included along with the building folks, or you may get it and then send it to the building folks of a survey saying what trainings would you would like to have. So sort of high level, what's new in the energy code for non-residential, and then a survey for what would you like us, what do you think are the gaps, and what trainings can we do to help you fill those gaps. So we're finally getting our ready. It's been literally a year and a half, practically almost a year and a half since the CPUC approved IRAN, and we're ramping up with some programs over the next couple of weeks. So look for some emails from Peter and myself really in the next few days / next week. So that's it for DCE. So the next DCE board meeting, going back to that, is Friday, May 12th, and it actually will be in City Hall. If you wanted to, you won't already be in the building, but if you wanted to come, that's when our board members will be available. And the June meeting is June 27th. So those agendas will go out. But that will be in person. So if you want to come, you'll need to show up in person. Okay, that's it for both of those two programs, and certainly happy to take any questions from the other commissioners, and certainly for Vice Chair Baker, Commissioner Barrett, we did hire somebody who started a new program specialist. She started 2 weeks ago, and so she'll be helping to relaunch the Community Advisory Committee.
Okay.
We just they need to have an additional staff.
For those two meetings that you just mentioned that are coming up soon, would it be advisable to be there?
They're fairly, you'll get the agenda, so you should be there. The May meeting is fairly routine. The June meeting may potentially, but I don't know for sure, potentially have a recommendation for one of the projects that came, but that's assuming that we can get the contract in the next 2 months, and can't make that commitment yet. The June meeting will be mostly focused on the budget, because just like City Hall, City Council, we need to approve the budget. So you're of course welcome to come. The public is very much invited to do that. You'll see if you had to go to one of them, I would probably suggest the June meeting as opposed to the May meeting. June meeting is on Monday, I think it's Tuesday, June 27th. So you'll see the agenda. You should be, let me know if you don't get the agenda, but it should be out probably next Tuesday or Wednesday at the very latest.
I would say the previous meetings that I did manage to monitor were interesting, but they are very dry.
And forgive me, but I can't make it more exciting than it is. There's just a lot of regulatory stuff that we're dealing with now. So that's what I'm saying is that you're obviously welcome to attend, but I'm there may not be that much exciting stuff.
Okay.
We're keeping the lights on. That's the most important thing. Okay, that's it for those. So if there are no further commissioner comments and reports, we've gone through the list and go through the room, quote unquote, for 1 minute, up to 1 minute for any further thoughts that we have and direction to LP for the May meeting in case she might need anything. Commissioner Torrens, anything further?
Not for me.
Okay. Commissioner Barrett?
Unfortunately, I do have something and I want to try it, say it real quick. I was in Northern California and they have changed how all the traffic lights work, and it made pedestrian life much easier. And I think it's something that we might want to talk briefly about. It's a very simple change if our city could do it. It's just making the pedestrian lights change with the car traffic sitting still for just like 15 seconds, but it's just enough for the pedestrian to get in the road and get across the street without getting killed. So it's something I think we could take something like that and just promote it over to engineering. I mean, it's not a big task. It's just something that it looks like it would increase pedestrian safety.
Okay, that's a really good idea. So LP, you can relay that to the folks in engineering. Great. Okay, thank you.
I'll find out a little bit more for the next meeting, and then I'll get an update from them on that. And then if we need to invite them back to talk more, we can.
Okay.
A question on that. So is that, so for instance, in Pasadena, there's a only pedestrian crossing. So you can cross diagonally or perpendicularly.
Right.
And then, but when the lights turn green for the traffic, pedestrians cannot cross the street. So even if you're going with the flow of traffic and the light is green, there's a big red and it causes more confusion because the people that live there know that you can't walk out. So they're going to make a right turn. And the tourists walk right out. And then, so it actually causes more trouble than not in a tourist environment where people aren't used to seeing that light structure.
LA experimented with that when I was living in LA, and it was just what you described. It was actually more dangerous. This is different. It's a little hard. It's actually very simple, but it's hard to explain. I'll use my intersection, Sunrise and Ramon.
Okay.
So if you're going to cross Sunrise on Ramon, just in that one direction, just on each side, the light for the pedestrian, the walk light comes on about 10 seconds before the time for the cars to start moving, so that you, as a pedestrian, you can get out into the crosswalk before anybody starts turning.
Got it. Okay.
That makes sense. It's much.
Yes, now that does
slower
that.
than
In
the,
other words, you get to walk before they get a green light. They're still sitting there and you can go out there. Yeah.
Again,
Yeah,
crossing.
they're doing that in the Bay Area, and I think they were doing it in Santa Cruz also. So,
Okay. All right,
Great
thank you
idea.
for the explanation then. Okay, Vice Chair Baker, anything further?
Nothing right now. Thanks.
Okay, and I have said a lot of things and don't have any further to add. Of course, LP, you can always count on me in between meetings for any, any future direction that you need. Okay, with that in mind, I will adjourn the commission. Actually, one very point is that I am leaving for San Diego for a conference the evening of May 16th, so we will need to finish by 7:30 because I have a bus to take to Los Angeles. So that's my one comment is maybe it'll be a little bit we're fine for 7:30, but I can't go beyond my stop time for the next meeting at 7:30. That's all I have there. I'll have a car wait, then take me up to the bus stop. Okay, well, with that in mind, we are now adjourned for the next regular meeting of the Sustainability Commission to be held on Tuesday, May 16th at 2023 at 5:30 p.m. via video teleconference. And thank you very much to all of you, staff. Anita, thank you once again, and see you all in a few weeks. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Everyone,
Bye.
take care.
Bye.